All right, welcome into this week's Washington Huddle web exclusive. I'm Craig Loper. He's Scott Jackson. Scott, in some regards, I feel like when talking about the Washington football team, it's a broken record. But then you get a game against Green Bay. The Washington defense plays better, but the offense just can't punch it in. What was going on?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, literally inches away from scoring on multiple occasions and unable to cash in. It was a frustrating day for them, and then to move the ball at ease. They didn't punt, but they didn't finish drives. There's just too many, self-inflicted wounds, if you will, by this team, and it's just kind of a pattern this year, right? The offense plays well, defense doesn't perform well. Defense performs better, offense doesn't perform well. It just kind of, they can't seem to all get on the same page at once, and that's why they're 2-5 right now.
Talk to me about defensive team leader Jonathan Allen. After the games, he had some pretty candid comments about what they need to do to get better, and really took accountability as the team now sits at 2-5. The person he is, what can he do for this locker room down the stretch?
Well, he's going to come to play every week, as you've seen. He's been the best player on defense after getting that big contract this offseason, leads teams in sacks. He's also a guy who's very good against a run and, always does his assignment. And I think that's what he gets frustrated about, because there's some guys, when you see the pass rush integrity, when the guys are working in concert, as they like to say, there weren't a whole lot of options for Aaron Rodgers this past week. You could see it. And then a couple times, the C's part, and then Rodgers was able to run because guys weren't doing what they were supposed to do. But, I think Allen, he's going to be the same guy no matter what's going on. He's always consistent. He comes to work. He's going to support his coaching staff, support the game plan, whatever it is, and go out and execute it. And, hopefully guys can just follow his example and continue to do it. He doesn't talk a lot. He's not a guy who brags a lot about what he's doing. He just goes about his business, and he's the most productive guy so far. And I think some of these younger guys, especially on the defensive line, could learn from him. Maybe not talk about sack records and things before you've actually ever done it. And just, go out and play your second season of the NFL, for example, if you're Chase Young, instead of, making those kind of proclamations the offseason.
Scott, you talked about the frustrations in the red zone. A big part of that was Taylor Heineke, that awkward sort of dive play. Take us through his mindset. I mean, we've seen him dive so much. Is it just something where his body almost, it's like a muscle memory thing? What did he say afterwards?
Well, he explained, that he maybe thought that guys were closing in too quick, the two, defensive players over there, and he overthought it and dove when he shouldn't have, and again, that is the right call. I mean, you can argue the rule, say it's a stupid rule, what have you, but that's the NFL changed the language of that rule within the last year. Aaron Rodgers got burned on it against Tampa a year ago as well. Taylor told that funny story after the game about it, with him, talking to Rodgers during the game, and asked Aaron to go get the call overturned. But it's just something, he's just got to finish the play there. I mean, just run through. There's really no point in doing that. And, it was great that he was so free. I mean, 95 yards rushing. He was throwing the ball downfield, with no fear, and after the first half, I thought he settled down pretty good in terms of not, throwing the ball too high. Sometimes he throws with that back foot and the ball sails on him, but did a better job in the second half with that. But, again, just too many mistakes, the interception, obviously, the strip fumble and that play there. And actually, the next play, to be fair to Taylor, I thought he got in, Craig, and I think the end zone copy of the tape showed that he was in as well. He was on bodies. He wasn't down. He reached across the goal line there, and it should have been a touchdown. But the referees, for whatever reason, they called it one way on the field, so they usually stick with that call.
I want to talk a little bit about the fan base. You have, if anyone around the Washington organization has a pulse on the fan base. In terms of your post-game radio show, what is the emotional pulse right now as this team sits at 2-5?
Oh, I mean, it's, everybody's depressed, angry. I mean, all the bad emotions you can have. Nobody's happy with where they are. There's a lot of frustration. And, and then there's always the big picture conversation that comes after losses like this one, Craig, when you're playing, for multiple weeks, they played against elite quarterbacks with the exception of Winston, right? Who's good. Don't get me wrong. I think Washington would love to have Winston, but, you're talking about a stretch where they played, Pat Mahomes, and obviously just played Aaron Rodgers. You're going to play Brady in a few weeks. You had Justin Herbert early in the season to Josh Allen. It's just that whole frustration, like they don't have that position settled, and they haven't forever. And that's kind of why they are where they are, where you can't afford to go into games and help the other team, especially a team that has Aaron Rodgers on it. But, they did that this past weekend. That was a frustrating thing because there were some positives for sure. But again, they just invent new ways to lose at times, and that's what I think really drives the fans crazy. And there was a lot of hope, obviously, coming in after last season. Where it wasn't a great year at 7-9, winning a down division, but you at least felt like, okay, we got something to build on here, and they obviously have it.
Let's get you out of here on this. Washington goes to Mile High Stadium to face the Denver Broncos. They're a team that started 3-0. They've fallen off big time since then. Teddy Bridgewater, their quarterback. Washington on the road in Mile High. Scott, what are your thoughts about this game? Can they finally get back in the win column?
I think they can, but look, Denver had a little bit extra time because they had that Thursday night game. I'm sure they're thinking the same thing. Like, hey, here's our get well game. Here's Washington, right? We could really throw it around the yard on them. They get, Judy coming back off the injured reserve. Sutton's been good for them this year. This is a chance for them to throw the ball. Washington's still last in the league in pass defense. But they're beat up. This is a beat up Denver team, especially on defense. Von Miller may or may not be in there. I think Washington should be able to move the football. And if they play solid, sound defense like they did against Rodgers, I think they'll have chances to get Bridgewater down and create some turnovers in this game and get a road win. But they've got to go out and do it, and they've got to show up on all three phases of the game. I mean, that's the bottom line, and we just haven't seen them do that yet this year, Craig. Even in the two games they won, it was a little sloppy in stretches. So hopefully they can show that going into the bye week. Otherwise, it's going to be a long 2 weeks. And then on the other side of it, you got Tom Brady, the GOAT, waiting for you.
He is Scott Jackson, host of the Washington football team post-game radio show, and this has been this week's Washington Huddle web exclusive. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Thank you.